surge to inland flooding, the majority of the state of Florida is in Ian's crosshairs. Therefore, I would like to just share a few key safety messages that will help keep you and your family safe. First, never drive through standing or moving water, as it takes only a few inches of water to carry away a vehicle. Second, if you are taking shelter in an area with rising water levels, quickly find higher ground. And third, never operate a generator in your home. Too many lives are lost each year due to carbon monoxide poisoning, and it's incredibly important that you only run generators outdoors. So now I'll give a brief update, operational update on the interagency personnel, commodities, and resources that we have deployed to support this response. As I said yesterday, search and rescue remains a top priority. Our search and rescue coordination teams remain staged in Miami to include teams from our FEMA Urban Search and Rescue Program, the Coast Guard, CBP, the Department of Defense, the Department of the Interior, and the state of Florida. These teams will coordinate search and rescue efforts by land, air, and sea. We have 128,000 gallons of fuel remained ready for rapid deployment. We have moved in a variety of generators of all sizes and types to restore power to critical infrastructure and medical facilities as needed. The Army Corps of Engineers is pre-staging 350 personnel to conduct power and fuel assessments as soon as the storm passes. And just yesterday, I spoke with the president and CEO of the American Public Power Association to discuss some of their emergency preparedness actions and the mutual aid agreements that they have in place. We have 3.7 million meals and 3.5 million liters of water staged in Alabama, and there are multiple volunteer agencies that are staged and prepared to perform feeding operations as soon as it is safe to do so. We have provided Florida with 300 ambulances as well as expert federal medical teams. These are the same teams, the same brave first responders that we use to help communities during COVID-19. We are also tracking medical needs across Florida's hospitals, adult care facilities, and dialysis centers, both for facilities that have evacuated, but more importantly for those that have not. And finally, as I told the president yesterday, this level of interagency coordination will not stop as we prepare for the historic and the catastrophic impacts that we are already beginning to see. So now with every emergency response, we would not be successful in meeting our mission without our partners at the American Red Cross. The Red Cross has done an incredible amount of work in preparation for Hurricane Ian, and it is my pleasure to welcome the American Red Cross CEO, Gail McGovern.
Thank you so much, Administrator Criswell, for inviting me to join you. And FEMA and the Weather Service are wonderful partners, and I want to thank you both. On behalf of the American Red Cross, our hearts are with everyone that's in the path of Hurricane Ian. Please listen to your local officials, evacuate if they tell you to do so. Grab your medication, your glasses, your important documents, prescription drugs, and the like. Check on your neighbors, and please don't wait out the storm if you're being told to evacuate. It's dangerous. We're working closely with our partners and local officials in the affected communities to make sure they have the help that they need. Since last week, the American Red Cross has been moving hundreds of trained volunteers from across the country and tens of thousands of relief supplies to Florida in preparation for Ian. Everyone's safety is our top concern. We have dedicated and very compassionate teams of experienced Red Cross leaders in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. They're in contact with state, local, and tribal officials, and we will be ready to support the evacuation centers. As of this morning, staged in Florida, we have nearly 500 Red Cross responders and shelter supplies for 60,000 people. Those Red Cross teams have been responding to the requests from local government to equip and open evacuation centers, and they're preparing now to deliver critical relief after the hurricane passes. After landfall, by the end of this weekend, over 2,500 Red Cross responders will be deployed to Florida and other affected states. We'll work with our government and nonprofit partners and provide shelter, food, emergency supplies, care, comfort, and hope to the tens of thousands of people in the path of the hurricane. Also, if people want to help their neighbors, we can always use local volunteers. Just go to our website, redcross.org, and there are a lot of ways to find where there are safe shelters. Anyone who needs a safe place can go to find information for open Red Cross shelters at our website, redcross.org, or you can use our free Red Cross emergency app, and you can call 1-800-RED-CROSS. Just make sure you're following the instructions of the officials. And you can also find shelters at floridadisaster.org. And finally, to everyone in the path of the storm, please, please, please follow the evacuation instructions from your elected officials and your local officials. We know that for many of you, recovery from Hurricane Ian will likely be a very long road, and your American Red Cross will be there. And if you'd like to help us, you can volunteer, you can donate blood, or you can make a financial donation by going to redcross.org. And no donation is too small. They're all deeply appreciated, and everything that the Red Cross does is because of the generosity of the American public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. Now I'd like to turn to Director Graham from the National Weather Service to talk about what he's doing to support the response.
Thank you, Administrator Criswell. Appreciate that. And, we're watching the storm closely. Of course, it's a very historic storm as we look at this. So I just appreciate the relationship and the coordination with FEMA and also the state, the county, the local, and also the federal level, all the emergency managers. So there's been coordination, briefings behind the scenes, talking about this storm for the last week, and we just appreciate that relationship. Actually, literally have my phone up here because things keep changing as we speak. With a storm like this, it's very common, so I'll be able to bring you the latest information right up here. Well, I wish this wasn't a forecast that I had to deliver. You really look at this, I wish this wasn't a forecast that's about to come true. Okay, so this is a devastating storm for parts of Florida, not just on the southwest coast, but also inland associated with some of these impacts. This is going to be a storm we talk about for many years to come. It's a historic event. So the impacts are already underway. Already starting to see some of those squalls getting into Florida, and we're throwing everything at it at NOAA. Everything from the satellites, radar. We've had extra balloon releases across the country. Think about the Midwest. Think about the Northwest United States. The Weather Service Forecast Office launching extra balloons so we get that data into the models, to try to get everything we can into the models to make these forecasts. Hurricane hunters from the Air Force and NOAA have constantly been in the storm, often at the same time, getting us the data that we need. And some of these updates that we've been giving you this morning has come from the data that we get from the hurricane hunters. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, I just want to say this real clear, what heroes, right? They go in towards the storm so we can get everybody away from the storm. So just real heroes flying into there, both the NOAA hurricane hunters and the Air Force hurricane hunters. Just absolutely amazing work from these heroes. Winds are 155 miles an hour. Category 4 storm. The radii, hurricane force winds go out 35 miles from the center. It's so important not to just focus on that center line, right? It's big. 35 miles away from the center, you have those hurricane force winds. Think about this, 150 miles away from the center, you have tropical storm force winds. So it's not just right there in the center, right? It's a bigger impact from all of this. And the storm is slowing down as forecast. And that's going to compound the issues associated with storm surge and compound the issues associated with the rainfall. So real important, you heard the advice already here, have those plans in place. If you're in Southwest Florida, the time is to be safe and be where you are, and other places you know, the central part of the state and the northwest. This isn't just the west coast, even the east coast of Florida is going to see some storm surge and some winds as this takes the time to move across the state. Slow. So it's going to take 24 hours or so once it makes landfall to make it to the other side of the state across the peninsula. So it's 24 hours of rainfall, 24 hours of winds pushing the water. That's 24 hours that you'll see some impacts associated with this. We already heard it, Administrator Criswell, we've talked about this for years, and it's true. Water. We have to talk about the water. 90% of your fatalities in these tropical systems comes from the water. It's a storm surge, it's the rain, not just on the coast, but also inland. So we have to talk about it. Life-threatening, devastating storm surge forecast. Okay, this is the brand new information over the last hour or so. Think about some of these values. Middle Longboat to Inglewood, 6 to 10 feet. Inglewood to Bonita Beach, 12 to 18 feet storm surge. That's above ground. That's up your pant leg. That's a lot of water. That's a dangerous, life-threatening amount of storm surge, okay? Bonita Beach to Chokoloskee, 8 to 12 foot of storm surge. So these communities along the coast, it's an incredibly dangerous situation. Rainfall, not just along the coast, but inland. Think about these values that we're forecasting. Widespread 10 to 15 inches, 15 to 20 inches. Some places gonna get 2 feet of rain. It's moving that slow. And that rain has a tough time draining because the storm surge has it blocked. So the water, people really need to listen to the warnings, have multiple ways to get information and warnings as the water is going to be incredibly dangerous. The wind as well. And we talk about the leading cause of fatalities being water, but when you have a Category 4 storm like this around that eye wall, devastating amount of damage right around that eye wall. So structural damage, power lines, trees, and some serious damage right around that eye wall. And tornadoes. If there wasn't enough threats, we still have tornadoes. 90% of your tornadoes are on that right front quadrant. So as we follow this storm in, the right front quadrant's where you get 90% of the tornadoes. So everybody really urging you to stand by for some of those warnings as they get issued. So that's it. There's an incredible amount of information. It's coming. And the one last thing I want to mention, even getting through the storm, it's dangerous afterwards. It's no fun after these storms, okay? There's debris. There's, you know, you think about trees, power lines, and please be careful with the generators. We've seen over the last couple of years in some of these big hurricanes, including Hurricane Laura that hit Louisiana, that there were more fatalities afterwards associated with generators than there was from
On y aura le nouveau temps en fait.
Todavía no toca tierra, entonces queremos que tengan mucha precaución. La administradora platicó con su equipo, con el equipo de FEMA esta mañana, y estamos listos y confiados de que tenemos a los equipos correctos en los lugares correctos para responder a esta tormenta. Y también para satisfacer las necesidades de las personas a las que servimos. Les pedimos a todos que acaten las advertencias de las autoridades locales antes, durante y después de la tormenta. Estas son advertencias que amenazan la vida y no pueden ser ignoradas de ninguna forma. Cuando se trata de olas de agua, lo escuchamos de la administradora, es algo bien, pero bien peligroso. Tienen que tener mucha precaución. Estamos hablando de marejada ciclónica, también de inundaciones que no tan solo van a estar en la costa, pero también tierra adentro, y eso va a afectar a comunidades que están tierra adentro en el estado de Florida. La administradora Criswell también mencionó que queremos compartir consejos útiles con ustedes. Nunca maneje en aguas inundadas. También si está en un refugio y empieza a inundarse, por favor vaya a un lugar más alto de ese refugio. Y tercero, nunca use un generador dentro de su casa. Es peligroso, es letal. Hemos visto en otras tormentas que eso no es una buena idea. También una actualización de las operaciones de FEMA. de nuestro personal, de los suministros y los recursos que hemos desplazado en la respuesta a esta emergencia. Tenemos equipos de búsqueda y rescate, también de equipos de la Guardia Costera de Estados Unidos, Departamento de Defensa, Departamento de Interior y del Estado de Florida, localizados y ubicados en Miami, listos para ser desplazados como se necesiten. Estos equipos coordinan sus operaciones por aire, por agua y también por tierra. Tenemos 128,000 galones de combustible también ya listos para ser desplazados a las áreas que sean necesitadas. Hemos movilizado generadores de todo tipo y todo tamaño también para restaurar energía eléctrica en esos lugares, en esos centros de infraestructura crítica como hospitales y lugares médicos también. El Cuerpo de Ingenieros también ha preposicionado 350 empleados para ayudar y llevar a cabo evaluaciones de energía y de combustible cuando la tormenta ya pase. La administradora habló recientemente también con la compañía de electricidad para ver cómo están ellos posicionados para restaurar la energía eléctrica. En cuanto a agua, comida y esos suministros, tenemos 3.7 millones de alimentos ya preposicionados en Alabama, también 3.5 millones de agua, también en ese estado preposicionados para ser desplazados a la zona impactada. Y hay muchas agencias también sin fines de lucro que están ayudando en las labores de alimentación para las personas afectadas después de que pase la tormenta. También en Florida tenemos 300 ambulancias y equipos médicos federales, los cuales también apoyaron en la respuesta a COVID-19 cuando esa emergencia pasó. Estamos vigilando muy de cerca las necesidades de hospitales del estado de Florida, centros de cuidado de adultos mayores y de diálisis también, y aquellos lugares que no evacuaron o que no pudieron desalojar. Finalmente, la administradora Criswell habló ayer con el presidente Biden